All right, let's just jump right in. We are talking about an absolutely seismic shift in medicine. There's a new class of drugs out there that's doing so much more than just helping people lose a few pounds. It's creating one of the biggest, most disruptive market opportunities we've seen in, well, maybe ever.
And when I say big, I mean, get this. We're talking staggering numbers. The big financial institutions, they're projecting that by the early 2030s, the market for these new weight loss drugs could just explode to over $150 billion. That's not just a hit product. That is an entire industry materializing, like right in front of us.
But a number that big doesn't come out of nowhere, right? It's rooted in a massive human story. The reason this market potential is so off the charts is because it's tackling a global health crisis that affects, well, over 890 million people worldwide who are living with obesity. The scale of the need is it's immense.
So that really brings us to the core question we're going to tackle here. How did we even get to this point? I mean, how did an issue that was, for decades, kind of dismissed as just a lack of willpower, how did that suddenly become the biggest medical and financial story of the decade? Let's get into it.
Okay, section 1. So how do you even build a $150 billion market? Well, it all starts when you realize the problem we're solving isn't just a medical one, it's an economic one. We're talking about a global health crisis that has a price tag so huge, it basically forces everyone to find a solution.
And the scale of this problem is, honestly, it's almost hard to wrap your head around. Let's forget about just the direct healthcare costs for a second. The total economic impact of obesity, from medical bills to lost productivity, it's projected to hit $4 trillion by 2035. And if we don't change course, that number could balloon to a frankly insane $18 trillion by 2060. When you're dealing with numbers that big, you better believe there's a powerful financial reason for everyone to find an answer.
But here's the real game changer. The crucial turning point was this fundamental shift in how we think about the issue. Major medical bodies, like the American Medical Association, they officially reclassified obesity. It's no longer seen as a lifestyle choice or, a failure of willpower. It's now recognized as a chronic, relapsing disease, just like diabetes or high blood pressure. And that right there, that was the key that unlocked the door for serious drug treatments, and, just as important, for insurance companies to start paying for them.
So once you have that official medical stamp of approval, you can see exactly why Wall Street got so excited. I mean, look at these forecasts. While the exact numbers kind of bounce around from a more conservative $77 billion all the way up to over $158 billion, the overall feeling is crystal clear. Everyone agrees this market is just set for explosive growth.
So why the huge difference in those forecasts? Well, it all comes down to a few massive, multi-billion-dollar questions. Like how quickly will competition and generics drive down prices? How fast will people outside the US start using these drugs? And probably the biggest unknown of all, especially here in America, will Medicare eventually cover these things for seniors? The answers to those questions, that's the difference between a really big market and a market that literally rewrites the history books.
All right, so we've got this huge market that's built on a real recognized medical need. But what's the science that's actually making all this possible? I mean, how do these drugs actually work? Well, it's not magic. It's actually a really clever bit of biological mimicry.
So the whole secret sauce here is a hormone our bodies already make. It's called GLP-1. It's a natural hormone that gets released from our gut when we eat, and it's basically a key messenger that helps control our appetite and blood sugar. The absolute genius of these new drugs is that they're synthetic, lab-made versions of that exact hormone, but they're engineered to stick around longer and work a lot more powerfully than our natural supply does.
And what does this supercharged hormone messenger do? Well, you can really break it down into 3 simple things. First, it sends a signal to your brain that says, hey, you're full. Second, it slows down how quickly your stomach empties, which makes that full feeling last a whole lot longer. And third, it works on the pancreas to help keep your blood sugar in check. It's this 3-pronged attack that completely changes the body's relationship with food.
Now, whenever you have a market this huge and a scientific breakthrough this effective, you know a massive corporate battle is right around the corner. This isn't just another drug launch. It's a full-on modern-day gold rush, with a couple of giants leading the pack and a whole lot of hungry challengers trying to catch up.
As of right now, this whole world is basically a duopoly, a 2-horse race. You've got Novo Nordisk with their drug Wegovy. That's a pure GLP-1 drug, and it gets people around 15% average weight loss, which is incredible. But then you have Eli Lilly with Zepbound, and they took it a step further. It's what's called a dual agonist. It hits both GLP-1 and another hormone called GIP,
And that combo gives it a serious edge in effectiveness, getting up to around 21% average weight loss in clinical trials.
But here's the thing. Having the best drug on paper doesn't mean a thing if you can't actually get it to patients. For years, the single biggest problem has been supply. The demand has been so insane that both of these companies have had to pour tens of billions of dollars into just building new factories. It's turned into a manufacturing arms race, and now the ability to just reliably make the stuff has become a competitive weapon all on its own.
But make no mistake, this two-company town isn't going to last forever. There's a whole wave of challengers coming, and they're not just trying to beat the leaders on pure weight loss numbers. They're trying to be smarter about it. You've got companies like Amgen working on a drug that might only need a monthly shot instead of a weekly one. Roche is focusing on making a drug with fewer of those nasty side effects. Each one is looking for a different angle, a unique advantage to carve out their own slice of this gigantic pie.
Okay, and this is where the story goes from being huge to being truly revolutionary. The most powerful thing driving this market in the long run, it's not just the weight loss. It's the growing mountain of evidence that these drugs treat a whole host of other deadly and very expensive diseases. This is the pivot point. This is how these drugs go from being seen as a pricey lifestyle drug to an essential disease-modifying therapy that insurance companies have to take seriously. We now have landmark studies showing they can cut the risk of heart attacks, strokes, and cardiovascular death by as much as 20%. They're already approved to treat a type of fatty liver disease, and they're showing amazing promise for slowing down chronic kidney disease. This changes the entire conversation.
And the list of potential uses just keeps growing. But the absolute holy grail, the biggest what-if of them all, semaglutide, that's the main ingredient in Wegovy, is now in the final stages of testing to see if it can treat Alzheimer's disease. I mean, just think about that. If that actually works, it opens up a whole new world that is almost impossible to imagine in terms of scale.
So for our final section, let's look over the horizon. What's next? What's the next big innovation we should be watching for? And, just as important, what are the big risks and hurdles that could slow this whole revolution down?
Okay, the next major frontier is pretty obvious: getting rid of the needle. Let's be honest, a lot of people just don't like injections. So, creating a convenient, effective daily pill could blow the doors off this market all over again. Eli Lilly, especially, seems to be pretty far along with an oral drug that could be a total game changer.
But it's definitely not all smooth sailing from here. There are some serious headwinds. First, the price. Payers are pushing back, and pushing back hard against that $1,000 a month price tag. Second, long-term safety. We still don't know everything, and lawsuits over serious side effects are starting to pile up. And finally, looming over everything is the patent cliff. That's the day these companies lose their exclusive rights and cheap generics can flood the market.
And that threat is very, very real. For semaglutide, the patents already start to expire in big markets like China and Brazil as soon as 2026. The really critical US and EU patents run out around 2032. Tirzepatide has a bit more time until 2036, but the clock is ticking for everybody. And that's exactly why the race to find the next big thing is so incredibly intense.
Which really leaves us with one last big question to think about. This whole revolution, this $100 billion industry, it all started with weight loss. But now, with clear proof it can fight heart disease, liver disease, kidney disease, and the potential to maybe even take on Alzheimer's, well, it's obvious this isn't just about weight loss anymore. So the real question isn't how big will this market get? The real question is, how profoundly will this change the future of medicine? This revolution began with weight loss, but where does it end?